Welcome, everyone, to another short session of Behind the Sabre, the Alfred Gibbs stories. Today we're diving into the life and leadership of Colonel Thomas J. Thorp of the First New York Dragoons. When you study the Dragoons long enough, you start to notice certain names rise above the rest, not because they sought attention, but because they earned it. And one of those names is Colonel Thomas J. Thorp. Thorp wasn't just a commander. He was the kind of leader soldiers actually followed, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. James R. Bowen, who served under him and later became the curator and fundamental authority on the Dragoons, makes this clear in his Regimental History, published in 1900. Bowen writes about Thorp with the tone of a man remembering someone he trusted with his life. And honestly, Thorp made that easy. Bowen recounts that his attention to the wants of the men and his quick response to their needs made him a favorite. That line tells you a lot. In a war where orders often came from men far removed from the mud and the misery, Thorp was the rare officer who stayed close, present, a leader who knew his men by more than their regiment number. But it wasn't just the battlefield where Thorp's character showed. You see it in one of the most remarkable moments in the entire regimental history, the kind of thing that would sound made up if it weren't documented. Bowen writes, "We recall the romantic marriage of Lieutenant Colonel Thorp, performed on the battalion line, backed up by the regiment at parade rest." Picture that. A Civil War regiment drawn up in formation, sabers sheathed, the dust of campaigns still on their boots. And right there, on the battalion line, Thorp marries the woman he loves. It's a moment straight out of a novel, and yet it happened. And more importantly, it shows you something essential about the man. His wife wasn't just in his life, she was in his mission. She didn't wait for him safely at home while he rode into danger. She stood with him, right there, in front of the men who depended on him. For a regiment worn thin by war, that moment mattered. It humanized their commander, it lifted morale. It told them that even in the darkest years of the Republic, joy could still win around. But don't let the romance fool you. Thorp was as fierce in battle as he was kind in camp. Bowen notes that in the heat of battle, Thorp exhibited remarkable composure and strategic acumen. That wasn't flowery praise. The Dragoons knew exactly what that meant. They saw it. There was the skirmish, Bowen highlights it, where Thorp's bold, decisive orders prevented the regiment from suffering catastrophic losses. He didn't freeze. He didn't falter. He thought. He acted. He saved lives. And when the odds were brutal, and they often were, Bowen writes that Thorp's leadership inspired the troops to push forward against overwhelming odds. That's the kind of sentence that only comes from people who lived it. Men who watched Thorp keep the line from breaking when every instinct screamed to fall back. You can't teach that. You can't fake that. You either have that presence or you don't, and Thorp had it in spades. And through all of it, from the battlefield to that battalion line wedding, one thing holds the story together: the relationship between Thorp and his men, and the steady, unwavering support of his wife. She married a soldier, yes, but she also married the mission, and in doing so she gave Thorp something every great commander needs: an anchor, a center, a reason to come home when the work was finished. So when you read Bowen's history, or visit the places where the Dragoons fought, you start to understand why Thorp's name keeps surfacing. He wasn't just a tactician, he wasn't just a commander, he was a man of conviction, deeply human, fiercely loyal, and impossibly brave, a leader who earned the devotion of his troops, a husband whose marriage became part of the regiment's own story, and a soldier whose presence on the field changed the fortunes of the men who rode beside him. Colonel Thomas J. Thorp wasn't larger than life. He was exactly life-sized, and somehow that makes him even greater. Thank you for joining me in this short session of Behind the Sabre, the Alfred Gibbs stories. We will look for you again as we explore the lives of those individuals that are highlighted at alfredgibbs.com. See you soon.